Good morning, people. Good morning, audience. Welcome to my ad hoc rantings program, internet program. But today will be a couple of specific picks. First one is a fact that when Pustalenin threatened with nuclear weapons, whether to use them or place them next to Finland and so on and so forth, this is revealing that he, in deep down, that Lizard Eye Cabal in Moscow now acknowledges their defeat in Ukraine. You resort to such threats and to such innuendos, to such hints, to such tactics, to such statement or rhetoric only when you really realized you lost the war. It's their nature, folks. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. So that's that. Point number one. Point number two, or specific pick number one. Now, specific pick number two, I'm going to re-emphasize or reiterate the fact that United States, Germany, France, whoever it is, the Arab countries, the MBSs and Zayids and so on, and Kuwaitis and whatnot, and the Ayatollahs and the Chinese regime, and here they're in complete support, and they're on the same page and same mission as that of Pustalenin invading Western Europe. Whether financially or whatever it is, they would have collapsed basically if they haven't been supported. But here's the deal. One indicator was revealed yesterday that the director of the CIA said, and I quote, that feeling the pressure in Ukraine, or meaningly being defeated in Ukraine, and him, Pustalenin, being vehement on invading Europe, and and his mentality and his sick mentality and whatnot, that he may resort to usage of nuclear weapons. This fact, folks, is not true. But what it is meant to do is to scare Europeans, is scare everybody else into submitting, at least in part, to the hegemony and to rule of Pustalenin, if you will. So when you hear something like this is not... one more. This is not a fact, folks. This is a fiction. However, it is a rhetoric that meant to scare Europeans and everybody else into capitulating, at least in part, to Pustalenin. That's not the case, folks. Number one, I doubt if the guy is alive or dead. I think he's dead, probably because of that intestinal cancer and so on. And maybe he stayed away from those guests. He's staying far on those big, long, oblong tables or whatever it is, because the one who's talking is not Putin, but some kind of a substitute, a surrogate, if you will. Oh, dude, you need to fix your power steering pump. Anyways, it's like that, folks. So regardless of that, that will not happen, folks. And Ukraine or whoever it is need not give in, not 1 inch, not one request, not one demand, not 1 centimeter to the Pustalenins. The Pustalenins must be treated as such, that they need to know and acknowledge and realize that they lost this adventure. They lost the adventure on January 6th in the White House, and they lost the adventure of invading Europe now. And Israel can go bang their heads against the wall all they want, right? They're not going to change the situation. So that's that, folks. Don't be concerned. And when you hear something something like this, this is meant to support Pustalenin and give him an exit, find him an exit. Pustalenin should not be given an exit or reprieve or anything, period. You never, remember the motto, you never negotiate with terrorists, you never negotiate with, and same thing with Pustalenin, the Fakling is a butcher, is a psycho, he and his cabal, their ideology and so on, from the moment they were manifested in the last century as communism until now, we know their history. You never appease those people, folks, those creatures from hell. Because if you do, they're going to come back again. And they feel as if they scored, and then now they begin to bark again at you Europeans, you Arabs, you whoever you are. And this is an opportunity for Europeans to basically draw the line in the sand or in the snow, for example, draw a line in the snow to make them understand what's going on. In fact, their presence east of Europe in Moscow and surroundings and here and there, which is a continuation of the mullahs of Iran and Shanghai and all that, the tribe out of Israel, right, is a problem. They have to go eventually, and they will go. It'll be bloody, but they will go. So that's specific pick or specific pick number 2, right? Now, specific pick number 3, and you may not believe this, but it is true. Pustalenin moved a couple of military pieces on the border with Finland, right? And they made that available on the media, and I retweeted that, of course. From this guy who retweeted from this guy who retweeted from this guy. A chain of retweets, right? Not that I have any respect for Twitter, but hey, if the politicians are there, I need to talk on that platform as well. Even though they restrict freedom of speech and so on, which they will be accounted for. Where? I'm not going to tell you where. But nonetheless, that's not the subject. The subject is this. You may not believe it, but Pustalenin is working with the West on hurting, like herding sheep, hurting sheep or hurting those Finnish and Swedes into joining NATO. Oh, you better believe it. All that posturing, all that rhetoric, all those threats against NATO. Oh, no, you don't understand. Pustalenin and Biden and Obama and Trump and Johnson and Macron and Scholz and Merkel, for that matter, right, are partners for Israel, basic and simple. And NATO and EU is a instrument and tool in the hands of Israelis. That's that. That said, when they do that, they're forcing you actually, or coercing the people in their psyche to go ahead and go into NATO and join NATO and apply for membership in NATO and European Union. Number one, if you apply to membership in the European Union, your finances are going to be screwed. Why? Because now the European Central Bank is going to dominate your currencies and your economy and so on. And they're going to be taking trillions and billions on your account, your account and currency and whatnot, and giving it to here and there, like support Russia, support Iran, support Israel, support Chinese regime, support Gulf, support regime in Syria, support regime in Iraq, supporting Hezbollah, supporting ISIS and Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhoods and Sisi of Egypt, General Sisi. So there you have it, folks. NATO and EU for you Swedes and Norwegians and Scandinavians and Finnish and Denmark and Danish and everybody else is a problem. And again, they will seize and control your policy of defense. So this is you taking your arms, right, and sword and armor and shields and whatever weaponry you have, and given the decision on the usage of that to NATO, which is controlled by Israel. Now, what do you think is going to happen? And I'm going to use that analogy and example again. Suppose you're in NATO, right? And that's what's going to happen. And I don't need to present a proof. I don't need to prove that, because you saw it in Ukraine. In the past 50 days, you saw what happened in Ukraine. The behavior of NATO, the behavior of the EU, the behavior of the Johnson who came to Kiev, like it looked like the way he was moving, he was dancing in that COVID party, remember? In 10 Downing Street, you know, the way he was shaking his big belly. And, you know, he was pretty much doing the same thing in Kiev. But you saw them, so I don't need to provide you with an evidence. And here's what's going to happen. Suppose Pustalenin, you know, decided to invade Finland. Now, for you Swedes, this is a red line. Why? Because invading Finland means he's going to invade Sweden. So now you want to intervene, but then comes EU and comes NATO, and they will stop you right there and then. Why? Because now you're escalating, right? And escalation is not good, because this wacko, this crazy guy in Moscow, is going to use nuclear weapons. See the game, folks? You know what they use against you, and as a ploy, as a reason, as a they immediately try to stifle your defense right there and then. And why would they want to do that? It's not escalation, because they're buying time for Pustalenin to take over Finland very simply and very easily. You know, like it's going to be a walk in the park, according to how they think, right? Similar to Ukraine. And then to come on your border, they you know, facilitate for the Pustalenin to come onto Sweden's border. Now it's gonna rouse your sense of territorial integrity and defense, and your population and your future. Everything, you know, becomes becomes questionable, right? Everything that Sweden is all about, if Pustalenin invades Finland and comes to Sweden, everything about Sweden, history, society, future generations, everything will be in question. Your economy is already in shambles and owned by somebody else, like European Central Bank, and then EU, right? And NATO, of course, you have to pay NATO, right? And then Israel controls it from the back end, and now they're going to rack up trillions on your Sweden economy in order to shore up, support those regimes in Syria and Iran and Russia, and all investors too. You know, investors must have their cuts, because, of course, they did you a favor bringing you into NATO and EU, right? So now you jump up to yourself, and now, you know, like, now comes NATO and the allies and the US, United States and so on, and they're going to play on you the same game as that of Ukraine. They're going to come and like take strolls in your on your streets in Stockholm and here and there, and support you with like 1.5 javelin. The half will not work, of course. The one may work and may not, right? And so on and so forth. And you know, they have no choice. Otherwise, they will be brazenly, openly supporting Pustalenin. So they cannot try to distract all these people in here and there that they're really supporting you or Ukraine. Now you may say, well, we're an industrial nation. We can manufacture weapons. You don't know. I did actually tell you that at the end of World War II, Japan had so many zero airplanes, but no fuel or pilots. So what are you going to do back then? Swim to Canada or the United States? The Immigration and Naturalization Service will give you deportation. Just like back into Pustalenin's arms and lap, you know, they're going to make you sit. You get it, right? Yeah. And of course, they will, you know, I'm joking about deportation. You know, I wouldn't deport Swedes and Germans and Arabs and those. I would deport certain kind, you know, but I would deport the Israelis. So anyways, that's pick number 3, folks. Right now, joining NATO or EU is really detrimental for your future and your country and your history and so on and so forth. Number 3 or 2, you have no choice now but to ramp up your defense and your common defense and shared defense between all the Scandinavian countries. And I would include Holland in this as well. And I would really encourage the Germans to really think twice about what they're doing, and that if Pustalenin makes it there, he's gonna denazify you. Well, that's the ploy, right? But what does that mean? My expectations, if he makes it there, but that's like an astronomical if, right? Especially what happened in Ukraine, we know he's, you know, like, not just that. I mean, I guaranteed you that even before it happened. He's going to make Germany disappear, folks. They're going to say that they're taking revenge on what happened, the atrocities and holocausts and so on. But now I wonder, didn't they do that in World War II? Oh, folks, you don't know those people. They're going to be taking revenge of you, on you uh, for this supposedly Nazi movement, which is really Eschke, Nazi, Eschke, Nazi, right? Or sister of communism, which mirror communism in every aspect of it, in its history, in its stages of evolutions and tactics and strategy and so on. It's a mirror movement of communism, folks. And the maker is one, and the controller is one, and still there. You know, it may have lost its name and so on, or changed clothes and hats and so on, but the same people still rule Germany, just like communism rules Russia and what they call Russian Federation, right? That's what it is, folks. So my expectations, hypothetically speaking, is that the Germans will suffer will have like bloodbath on their hands. Bloodletting will happen. Not just that, they may in fact now resort to completely removing something called Germany from the map totally. And the population will regret it, just like they regretted World War II. Of course, by World War II, they realized what has happened to them by this movement, dark, sinister movement called Nazism. So wake up, folks. Brexit and Brexit and all that stuff, it's very important for you to be independent from these two, EU and NATO. NATO in particular, man. No, they're going to tell you what to do, and what they tell you what to do is really not for your own good or your interest or your common defense or your well-being. Oh, no, no, no. What they will tell you to do is sit down, similar to Sylvester. Sylvester the cat, remember? When he tells Tweety, you know, sit down, sit still so I can kill you, right? That's what they're gonna make you do. Sit still until Pustalenin kills you. That's what the NATO and EU and the United States government now is all about. Has been actually after the assassination of JFK. That's what the United States government is all about. And if and when push comes to shove, after JFK, you will see that the United States is on the side of communist or Moscow, and they will support them, and they will give them all that they need, and in fact they supported them after Afghanistan, major support after their destruction in Afghanistan, and they knew they're coming back to Europe. When they withdrew, when this Gorbachev says like he was given independence and so on, he's a liar. Basically, they were buying time. They knew they had to come back, and Israel brought them help from the US, from England, from Germany, from here and there, even Africa. And now, as much as they're bringing Russia conscripts and militias and mercenaries from among the Shiites and Alawites and so on, the very same ones that you Europeans supported against the Syrian population and those Muslim brotherhoods. One fact for you is this: Morsi, that president of Egypt who was there for like 7 months or so, who himself appointed General Sisi, is really he and Sisi are brothers of Greek. It's that simple. Filter through all that jail and revolution and counter-revolution. All that is bullshit, folks. All that is bullshit. These two are Netanyahu's. That's that, folks. Have a nice day, my friends. And Scandinavia, you can't stand by, man. People, you can't just stand by waiting for things to happen. What happened in Ukraine happened exactly before that in Afghanistan. But as you saw, between Afghanistan and Ukraine, and the Middle East for that matter, is what it's a matter of time. So if they falter today, they will come back a decade or two later, or 3 or 4. And they will do what they will do. So you can no longer stand by and watch things happen and unfold, and events unfold, and all that is not your interest, folks. You just been bought time, just like Europe was bought time when the Soviet Union was destroyed in Afghanistan. But make no mistake, that hidden machine of Zion will generate a Pustalenin and Lenin and Stalin and Hitler and and Obama and Trump and Biden and Ayatollahs Xi Jinping of China, Xi Jinping, and MBSs and Erdogans, oh, they can generate that. They have a factory of it. They roll them out just like a chain, automated chain of that. What's his name? Henry Ford. Manufacturing chain. Oh, they roll them, spin them out, and spit them out, and they're as ugly as it gets. I mean, last century, it was harder, communism and Nazism. And, oh, they spin Castro's out too. And, oh, you name it, you name it. And this century too. Look what they've done in Chechnya, and Syria, and Iraq, and Afghanistan, and Yemen, and Libya, and here and there. And what they've done in Europe last century was supposed to be done to you in Europe this century. But guess what? You got yourself some time. So make sure that doesn't come your way. Right now, Europe has a very crucial priority, very, very important priority, and that is to consolidate your defense locally. Get rid of or exit those shadowy entities that call themselves what EU and NATO, who really operate by direction of Israel, and they work with Pustalenin. That's simple, folks. Have a nice day, my friends, and take care. We'll see you in the next video.